I confessed to my husband that I couldn't handle taking care of his sick mother anymore. He exploded, shouting, "You're heartless." She gave me life. His siblings called me selfish, demanding I do my duty. Fighting back tears, I whispered, "I'm drowning." And no one cares. When I finally walked away, they discovered the sacrifice I had been making in silence. And their guilt was overwhelming. I never imagined that the quiet town of Ashland, Oregon, nestled between the Siskiyou Mountains and the Rogue River, would become the backdrop for the most tumultuous chapter of my life. Ashland was known for its Shakespeare Festival, artisan coffee shops, and the kind of community where everyone knew your name. It was the perfect place for my husband, Mark, and me to settle down and build our life together. Mark and I met during our college years at the University of Oregon. He was studying environmental science, passionate about preserving the natural beauty of our state, while I was immersed in literature, dreaming of becoming a novelist. Our shared love for the outdoors and long hikes in the Cascades brought us closer, and soon we were inseparable. After graduation, we moved to Ashland, where Mark secured a position with a local environmental agency, and I began teaching English at the high school. Our days were filled with laughter, shared dreams, and the simple joys of small-town life. We bought a modest craftsman-style home, complete with a white picket fence and a garden where I planted lavender and daisies. Life was idyllic until the day we received the call that would change everything. Mark's mother, Eleanor, had suffered a severe stroke. She lived alone in Eugene, and with no immediate family nearby, the responsibility of her care fell squarely on our shoulders. Without hesitation, we brought her to live with us, believing it was the right thing to do. At first, the adjustments were manageable. We converted our guest room into a comfortable space for Eleanor, complete with her favorite rocking chair and family photographs. I took a leave of absence from work to care for her, attending to her medical needs, preparing her meals, and ensuring she was comfortable. However, as weeks turned into months, the weight of caregiving began to take its toll. Eleanor's condition required constant attention. She became increasingly irritable, often directing her frustrations at me. Mark, overwhelmed by his work commitments, was seldom home, and when he seemed oblivious to the challenges I faced daily. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, I mustered the courage to express my feelings to Mark. "I can't do this anymore," I confessed, tears streaming down my face. "I'm drowning and I need help." Mark's reaction was immediate and harsh. "You're heartless," he shouted. "She gave me life, and now you want to abandon her?" His words cut deep. I had sacrificed my career, my personal time, and my well-being to care for Eleanor, and yet my pleas for support were met with accusations. The following days were a blur of tension and silence. Mark's siblings, informed of the situation, called me selfish and demanded I do my duty. I felt isolated, unappreciated, and utterly alone. Finally, after much contemplation, I made the difficult decision to leave. I packed a small bag, wrote a letter explaining my reasons, and walked away from the life I had built. In the weeks that followed, Mark and his siblings were forced to confront the reality of Eleanor's care. They hired professional caregivers and experienced firsthand the challenges I had faced. The guilt and remorse they felt were evident in the messages and letters they sent, apologizing for their lack of understanding and support. While their apologies couldn't erase the pain, they marked the beginning of healing. I found solace in a small coastal town where I began to rebuild my life, focusing on my writing and rediscovering the passions I had set aside. This experience taught me the importance of self-care, the dangers of silent suffering, and the strength it takes to walk away when one's well-being is at stake. It's a chapter of my life that, though painful, led to growth, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose. I didn't expect to hear from Mark so soon. A week after I left, he called. I let it ring. I wasn't ready. But he didn't stop. He called again. Then his sister, Dana. Then his brother, Greg. I ignored them all. Then came the message. Mom's in the hospital. She's not doing well. We need to talk. My stomach turned. I knew what they were trying to do. Pull me back with guilt. But I wasn't the same woman anymore. Not the one who cried into the sink while blending Eleanor's soup. Not the one who smiled through clenched teeth when Mark walked in late, again, acting like I hadn't just wiped blood from his mother's nose after she'd fallen. I deleted the message. But 2 days later, Dana showed up at the cottage I was renting in Bandon, a quiet little beach town down the Oregon coast. She knocked like she owned the place. I opened the door, surprised. She looked tired, older somehow. Her lipstick was smeared, and her eyes had that red ring that said she'd been crying for hours. "We didn't know," she said without hello. "We didn't know what you were doing. What you gave up." I stared at her. I didn't invite her in. She screamed last night. "For you. Not Mark. You." "I'm not coming back," I said. My voice was steel, but my chest felt like paper. "She's not gonna last long." Neither was I. Dana looked at me like she wanted to argue. Then she dropped her purse, pulled out a thick envelope, and handed it to me. Inside were pages. Typed pages. "Her journal," she whispered. "Eleanor's." I didn't open it in front of her. She left without saying goodbye. I sat for hours, just staring at the envelope. Finally, I pulled out the first page. March 14th. I yelled at her again. God forgive me. She made me tea. I don't deserve her. April 2nd. I heard her crying in the bathroom. I pretended I didn't. I'm a coward. May 6th. She trimmed my nails and kissed my forehead. I told her I hated her. I don't. I hate myself. I covered my mouth, feeling hot tears rise. Eleanor had known. She had known all along what I was going through. She had been trapped in her own helplessness, and she had hated herself for it. I read every page. Then I did something I swore I wouldn't. I went back. Not to stay. Just to see her. Eleanor was thinner. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Tubes. Beeping machines. But her eyes were sharp. "You came," she whispered. "I read your words," I said, sitting by her bed. She smiled a tiny, broken smile. "I'm sorry." I held her hand. Me too. That should have been the end. Some tearful, healing goodbye. But fate wasn't done with me. Later that night, after I'd driven back to Bandon, I found my mailbox stuffed with letters. Not from family. From Mark's job. The environmental agency. I opened the first one. Urgent. Misappropriation of funds. Immediate investigation required. Mark had been using their joint accounts to cover private caregivers without filing proper disclosures. But the expenses had started before I left. Which meant he'd been paying someone else while I was still doing everything. I stared at the papers. So he'd lied. He had options. But he chose me as the free labor. My knees buckled. This wasn't about a mother's illness anymore. It was about betrayal. On every level. I pulled out the old journal Eleanor had given me before she passed. There were more entries than Dana had shared. Pages Dana hadn't read. And that's when I saw it. June 3rd. I overheard Mark on the phone. He said he wouldn't pay for unnecessary extras as long as she's willing to play nurse for free. He's talking about her. My heart broke. I want to scream. I want to die. I dropped the journal. Suddenly, every night I'd gone without sleep, every meal I skipped, every insult from Eleanor, it all twisted into something darker. I hadn't been just overlooked. I'd been used. And now? Now I wasn't angry. I was planning. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Eleanor's words repeating like a broken record in my mind. She's willing to play nurse for free. Mark. My husband. My partner of 15 years. He had watched me fall apart and did nothing not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't. Because I was cheaper than professional care. The betrayal stung in layers. But I wasn't going to confront him yet. Not until I knew everything. Over the next week, I dug. I went through the paperwork Dana left behind, cross-checked names and payments. I drove back to Ashland in secret and met with an old friend, Clara, who used to work in HR at Mark's agency. She had always liked me, and she owed me a favor. Listen, she whispered over coffee at the back table of our favorite diner. There's an ongoing investigation into a private, environmental research fund Mark supposedly started. But there's no actual research, just a bunch of payments to weird third-party names. She showed me copies of some of the checks. One name popped out immediately. Marla Jennings. That was the name of the private caregiver Mark's brother Greg said he eventually hired after I left. Except, the payments started 3 months before I walked out. So who the hell was Marla? I found her. She wasn't a nurse. She was a wellness coach from Grants Pass, young, blonde, and clearly not hired to take blood pressure. And she wasn't just on the payroll. She was living in our house, the one Mark and I bought together, within 2 weeks of me leaving. That's when the picture snapped into place. Mark hadn't been helpless and overwhelmed. He had planned for me to break. Planned to replace me. Not just as a caregiver. As a wife. I felt something shift inside me. Not just anger. Something colder. Focused. I called a lawyer. We opened the books. I wanted to know what money he'd moved, what lies he'd spun, what ground I had to stand on. And let me tell you, when you're the one who gave up everything, the courts notice. The house? My name was still on it. Those caregiver funds? They'd been pulled from our joint account, not his personal savings. Even the wellness coaching payments? Listed under medical expenses on our taxes, fraud. But I didn't just want to win in court. I wanted everyone to know. I wrote Eleanor's story. Page by page. I changed names, but not the truth. I self-published it online under a pseudonym. The Wife Who Vanished. Within a month, it went viral. Comments flooded in thousands of women saying, "This is me. I lived this." Some even guessed it was me. I didn't confirm it. I didn't have to. Ashland isn't that big. Word got around. The whispers started. About how Mark's new girlfriend was a nurse, but nobody ever saw her work. About the money. About me. Then I got the call. From his boss. "Is there something we need to know?" he asked, his voice tight. "I'd start with Marla Jennings," I replied. "I don't know exactly what happened after that, but I know this. Mark lost his job. The agency announced a full audit. Greg and Dana stopped defending him. And Marla? She packed her bags and vanished. Mark called me one last time. He didn't yell this time. He cried. I didn't know how to handle it," he said. I thought she'd die quicker. I just needed to get through it." I said nothing. "I messed up," he added. "Yeah," I whispered. "You did." Then I hung up. I didn't go back to Ashland. But I didn't run anymore either. I kept writing, kept telling the truth. Not just mine, but others. I turned my little cottage into a writer's retreat. Women came from all over. Caregivers. Wives. Daughters. People who had given until they broke. We wrote. We healed. And quietly, I kept collecting every bit of evidence, every document, every check stub. Because there was still one more chapter. And I wasn't done writing it. I didn't plan to take it to court. Not at first. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much he got away with. How much I let slide. And that made me just as guilty. I didn't speak up when I should have. I let them walk all over me. So I made a decision. I was going to sue Mark. Not just for the house or the stolen money, but for emotional damages, fraud, and neglect. The lawyers didn't laugh. In fact, they said I had a strong case. Unusually strong. Turns out, Eleanor had one last gift for me. She had signed a letter before she died. I hadn't seen it before. Dana found it among the medical files. My daughter-in-law is my primary caregiver. She gave up her job, her health, and her life to care for me. I want her to be compensated if anything happens to me. If my children fail her, they fail me. It was signed, dated, and notarized. Solid gold in court. When Mark was served, he tried to play the victim. Told anyone who'd listen that I was trying to bleed him dry. Claimed I was doing it for attention or money or bitterness. But this time, no one believed him. The story had already gone public. The book, the interviews, the women who'd rallied around me, it all turned the tide. Even his own brother Greg testified against him. I let it happen, Greg admitted on the stand. We all did. She carried Mom until she couldn't stand anymore, and we called her selfish. We were wrong. The court ruled in my favor. I got everything. Full ownership of the house, $120,000 in damages, a public apology read in court, Mark's reputation burned to ash. His job? Gone. His new wellness coach, girlfriend, disappeared as fast as she showed up. I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't, because the truth is, I wasn't innocent either. I stayed silent too long. I kept things bottled up. I let myself become the martyr. And when I snapped, I didn't just leave. I walked away without explaining everything. That silence gave him power. So I wrote about that too. In a second book. The Fire I Fed, a book about the quiet, daily choices that burn women from the inside out. The parts no one talks about. The small betrayals. The moments you bite your tongue. The nights you cry alone in the bathroom. It sold even faster than the first. But more important than the sales? The letters. From women. From men. From adult children who'd seen their moms break like I did. And from one man in particular. Greg. Thank you for telling the truth, he wrote. We failed you. I failed you. But you made sure it didn't stay buried. I still live in Vanden. Still walk along the beach every morning. Still write. Sometimes I visit Eleanor's grave in Ashland. Not often. Just enough. I bring lavender. I sit in silence. And I whisper we both paid the price. But at least we didn't die pretending everything was fine. That's how it ends. Not with a scream. Not with a slap. But with truth. Spoken loud enough for everyone to hear.